Mm. Mm. Hey guys, how are you doing? Advi here from Social Plus. Thank you all so much for joining today um, for a very exciting session. So, as you know, today's session is titled How CNBC Builds Trust Through Engagement and Education. But we're really going to be diving in deep with our guest here, Olympia, who's a senior product manager at CNBC. Thanks, Olympia, for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure. We're really going to be, learning a bit more from both in the media industry as well as specifically the financial aspect of the media industry, both from Olympia's current experience as well as her past experience, and really understanding what are the key pillars when it comes to driving this sort of user engagement, getting this sort of activity on platform, and really also how are we looking forward to the future, making sure we're targeting the right user group and right population in order to make sure that our future is something that is bright. Maybe to start us off, Olympia, you could give us a bit of background about yourself so that people get to know you a bit in terms of what you're doing now, what you used to do before, etc.
Yeah, of course. A little bit about myself. I have over a decade's worth of experience in the media industry. When I graduated from college, I thought I wanted to be an on air reporter. Quickly figured out I have the charisma of a damp sponge for TV, um, which was great to pivot. So, my specific experience is really in cable news and subscriptions. And as you mentioned, I'm currently a senior product manager at CNBC, where I build tools to help investors become more confident.
Awesome. So I know your career, as you said, I mean, it's been like a decade now, right? So you've obviously had experience in a number of different corporations as well as, a number of different roles. So you've also seen firsthand the sort of evolution that the media industry has gone through from being a primarily, let's say, broadcast-based network to having to shore up its own digital platforms, whether it be from websites to even considering, member only platforms and even some like educational streaming, etc. I'd love to learn a bit from you in terms of what you've seen are key pillars here. Like, what do you think are the must haves when you are a media company that is building your digital sort of empire?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think first and foremost, the key pillar is really understanding your passionate user or audience. Um, the relationship between media and any type of tool or engagement that you build is really cemented in that dynamic. It's a matter of having clear strategy and vision, being flexible and being opportunistic without hesitation. And that's especially something that I've seen both at Fox News, where I helped launch their first SVOD service, all the way to CNBC, where it's more of a, the leader in financial um, news. So it's a matter of, I think, building an experience and very much a cohesive experience between what you see on TV or what you're streaming, and then what you do outside of that.
Awesome. I think that makes complete sense. And of course, like you said, understanding your user base and what they need goes very heavily into this. Is there like any pattern you've seen there in terms of specific tools that might be of use? I know, like you mentioned, when you were working on Fox's platform, they were releasing also the Fox streaming at that time. How effective do you think streaming was on digital versus maybe some other tools that you are using to keep users engaged, whether it be market insights or those sort of things that you are developing now in terms of the financial scope?
Yeah, so the preliminary finding that really came out was users are seeking more access, so especially those passionate users. So whether it's more access to personalities or more access to original content or more access to tools so that they can become better and more confident investors. It's, as a product manager or just in general as a company, it's very key to building a strong relationship with your user. And a lot of that is you have to sit and talk face to face with your users and engage with them. Of course, analytics are key. But if you don't sit and have these real life discussions, I think it's very difficult to make true progress and to build for that user.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think it goes same hand in hand in community building. Like, you'd be surprised how many times like we'll talk to clients and they're like, okay, we want to maybe do this feature next or that feature next. And our first thing is like, okay, cool. Have you run it by your user group? Like, have you asked these people? And a lot of the times the answer is no, right? A lot of the times, unfortunately, there's a vision in someone's head and they want to go that way. And the whole point is you should social proof it. You should understand from your users like if this is what they want, right? And yes, like talking to them directly one on one is one option. I know, for example, like we work with Ulta Beauty, they in their community they actually like put out poll posts to ask users what they're looking for and they'll like survey the audience that way. Others will use other tools in order to do that. So I think you touched on a really important pillar there. I mean, it really changes based on your user segmentation and your different user dynamics that you have in your app itself, right? Um, is there something you see like when you look at CNBC? So now you're obviously working on a lot of financial tools for investors, for them to be able to track their stocks and track their portfolio, etc. What do you see as like things that you guys are doing to set yourself apart when it comes to this, right? Like, because I'm sure there's like, of course, other, of course, let's not get it wrong. You know, CNBC is a market leader when it comes to financial information and insights, but then there are others as well that definitely do play a role here, whether it's Bloomberg, etc. Do you, how is it that you guys see yourself setting yourself apart and getting users to, one, I guess, engage on the platform, but in your case also very heavily to be retained on the platform, right? And to stay on the platform.
Yeah, that is an excellent question. The media industry is oversaturated right now, especially finance news. And it's not just like classic media. It's you get it from anywhere. You get it from Reddit. You get news from your community, social media, and so forth. So I think our I think something that we really like to keep in mind is that finance and wealth management, it's an extremely personal journey. And it's how do I make an impact on your life outside of just sort of the passive way of watching CNBC. Like I mentioned before, people are very passionate. They keep on the channel all day. Okay, how do I make an impact on your life beyond that when you go on CNBC.com? So it's a lot of trying to understand how to make finance more digestible for every user at different points in their wealth journey. Not everybody has the same level of knowledge. So we really do our best in keeping the facts and the numbers as the primary pillar. Numbers don't lie. I will often say that. And battle testing um, everything that we put out. But as I said, like personal journey being that it is, it's really tailoring to the user and the demographic.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I definitely understand how, like, you know, when it's a dedicated platform, you're able to tailor it to them and you're able to, you know, help them kind of go step by step. I'm curious though, you did mention like rightfully so that there's financial news that people are getting from everywhere nowadays, right? Like Reddit, X, etc. So how is it that you guys are, one, either like combating this, or two, you know, backing it up? How is it that you are making sure your users can make the right decisions? Because obviously people are influenced by what they see in social media, what they read in social media. You know, a lot of companies that we work with in other countries, for example, we work with True Money in Thailand, which is a financial services platform. But for them, they also try and then make it an educational platform where they're kind of bringing the news or bringing the media in a way to these people, but trying to establish themselves as a trustworthy source. Is that one way to go about it? Or do you think that keeping the focus on the facts and the data is kind of the right way instead to go about it?
I think aggregation and access is one of the number one things that we hear from users. There's a lot of competition out there. So really it's uniquely positioning yourself that, okay, I think for instance, being a one-stop shop that many media companies have in mind today is a bit of a lofty goal. But how much can I retain you? How much can I keep you on site and on the experience, knowing very well that you will likely go and seek research and information from other places, but how can I get you at the end of the day to come back? So, one is bringing everything in one place for these investors. And
Yeah,
two, something that we found is making them very active with tools, um, especially trading and a lot of these like mathematical, like stock screeners and portfolios. And then personalization.
okay,
How do I make this site serve you so that you can keep coming back and seeing the news or the tickers or any other information that is the most personal to your journey?
makes sense. Okay, super interesting. Excuse me. So when it comes to, people learning about this, people taking their own learning journey and super personalized to them, there's a lot of times I find personally like that education is extremely important, right? And it sounds like with a step-by-step personalized journey, this way you guys are also addressing that education in a way. I'd love to kind of understand where where are the obstacles when it comes to education, right? Because everyone talks about the importance of education, financial literacy, understanding investing, and yet so few take action on it. So few like start to learn and then continue to go down that learning journey, maybe because they find that initial obstacle or like barrier to entry in terms of knowledge and stuff to know quite hard. Do you think this is an accurate perception, or like, do you think it's something that is just a perception that is coming out of fear? Do you think that it's actually an easy way to get in there? Or do you think there are some real blockers when it comes to actually educating people about this?
I think it's actually a great opportunity um, to have this problem and this perception. And financial literacy is very much a mutual relationship and goal between media product and the person who is seeking to be educated. The barrier to entry today, especially in investing, is pretty low. The market is rife with so many apps and fintech tools to get you to start investing. But I think where the responsibility lies on us is to build and be more inclusive of different demographics and different learning styles. For instance, something that I've noticed user testing is that women are more visual learners when it comes to finance compared to men. So how do we kind of create a journey that serves to different users?
Yeah.
Onboarding, speaking of entry, is something else that I think we all need to tackle. Um, some users need handholding, age. I don't think users are aging out. In fact, they're very much aging in, considering that we're living longer and we're inheriting wealth, and we have to take care of our wealth well into retirement, um, and beyond that. And then another thing with financial literacy is risk aversion. So that's something that we encountered building our wealth management tool for CNBC. You have users that are not just risk averse, but don't necessarily understand what risk is and how that ties into your finances. So, really taking the time to teach people so that you can
Yeah,
build that trust.
makes sense. I know we've discussed it as a very personal journey and, something that requires education. In my experience, at least for me personally, I'm not a great individual learner. I'm normally like a good group learner. So I'm curious, like, is that something that you guys consider? I've seen it with some of our other financial partners that we work with, right? Where like users want to discuss their investments or maybe a bad loan or a debt that they've taken. And like sometimes it's about moral support, sometimes it's about other people who have gone through something similar and can propose strategies that might help, right? Do you guys see that sort of dynamic as something to explore, something to test out when it comes to your product, in terms of letting people actually interact with each other, share stuff with each other, discuss stuff with each other?
Yeah, I think community is definitely an avenue that we want to explore and should be explored further. But it's a very fine line, especially when
Yeah,
it comes to finance and financial news, because you want to be very careful. It's a highly regulated space. But you also
yeah,
want to make sure that your investors are confident and have the most factual information um, to make a decision. So it's like, how do you kind of like build a community that's not necessarily like a vacuum of, especially given the market volatility of financial fears that may influence
yeah,
other people. So I
yeah, and
think
it might
it's
just exponentially kind of go stack with the next one and
right.
what's
You
next.
you
Yeah.
get you catch my drift.
Okay, no, fair enough. It can easily spin out of control. That I understand. So it needs to be highly controlled and highly regulated, or highly limited in terms of the stuff that the places you can interact or the ways in which you can interact. Right?
Exactly.
You
And it's
could,
another opportunity for education as well to learn from each other.
yeah,
So it has its pros and its cons. I think it's just it's building a community that, you know, serves the user's financial journey like the best way that it can.
fair. You also touched upon user demographics real quick. I'm curious from your perspective, of course, like you mentioned, we're not aging out, we're aging in. Um, that's for sure. There's an extended, lifespan that keeps on increasing on this side. As you said, there's wealth that's passing down also. So I'm curious more about the second part, right? That wealth transfer part. When that's happening from generation to generation, obviously there's a lot of users who might be have used CNBC as their source of truth, but then when it's getting passed down, how is it that you can try and make sure that you are retained throughout generation to generation rather than just for one user during their lifetime?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of early exposure um, to the platform. And that's something that we've seen really helps retain users, but also just tailoring the experience to sort of that middle age demographic, retirement demographic that
Yeah,
is now inheriting this wealth and keeping in mind that this these products need to serve both the long term user but also somebody who's totally new to finance. So it's
yeah,
it's it's creating a journey and environment and experience that follows you through every stage of life. And that's something that we've started to kind of like discover and really like kind of keep in mind as we move forward.
that's intense. I look forward to having like a CNBC financial buddy, like from birth to
Might
complete
have to steal that
education,
idea.
training, everything. I mean, you never know. It's quite with AI with AI chatbots and assistants nowadays. It's something that one could actually easily start from the teen years, at least from training people and getting them education. Speaking of AI, since that's something that is everywhere nowadays, I'm curious, like, where does AI play a role in your platform? Where are you guys planning for it to play a role in your platform? If you are, I mean, there's a lot of people doing AI for the sake of doing AI, but like, I'd love to learn that if there's any cool value adds that you guys are getting from specific use cases.
I think eventually, I'm sure we'll see AI make its grand entrance. But you hit the nail on the head. We have to be very mindful about not affixing AI onto the platform just for the sake of having
Yeah,
the tool, and being careful about like over reliance on AI as well. I think we're very much independent researchers, especially when it comes to your money, and keeping in mind that AI is not just a separate entity or a robot or a tool. It really depends on the information and the
the
data that
database. Yeah,
we
absolutely.
feed to it. So it will spit out information and respond, you know, depending on that. So we have a job, a very important job of being critical of
Yeah.
it, um, but also like honoring the very massive learning curve that's ahead of us when it comes to artificial intelligence.
Yeah, no, I think you made an excellent point. Like, it is completely dependent on which AI you're using, what database it is. Like, it has its own perspective. It has its own thing that is actually technically programmed into it one way or another, right? By the data set that it has. So that makes complete sense. It would be interesting to see, like, if your journey takes you guys down the road where, at some point you think we are the financial leaders, so we could probably build one that would have the right database of knowledge in terms of CNBC's vast history of knowledge, right? And advise people to go that in based off of that. Of course, always having the caveat that like this is not real financial advice. This is like just education, and let's see if you want to go down that
Right.
path.
And I think just beyond advice and sort of like leaning on it, it's how do I make use of it to aggregate all the news for me,
Yeah, yeah,
um, or like access to news very quickly, especially given how um, the market moves. So that's a whole other like dynamic that we
true.
have to consider between
All the
the
analysis that I
user
love
and
to run on my
AI.
market tracker as well. Like, how can I use AI to just run that more effectively, right? Run that
Right.
faster and
And
rare.
yeah, and still maintaining trust. People come to us because they trust us. So,
Yeah,
it's a very important relationship that we have to foster and maintain.
fair. Awesome. Um, so anything like we touched a lot on CNBC and CNBC's platform, of course, and how you guys do it. I'd love to understand, is there anything out there that you see other platforms doing, let's say in the media space, that you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. I might want to like, we should like think about that, or we should explore when you see someone doing something in education or in the community building area or even in the evolution of the digital platform, are there any standouts for you where you're like, that is a cool use case to definitely learn more about? Like, what would be your dream feature, let's say, to add to your platform in a way?
That is a really good question. I really love, I guess I used it the other day, but like Wealthfront's onboarding um, journey is
Yeah,
fantastic on their app, because uh, they really show you like how far your investment can, go throughout your life. So I think more predictive and forecasting tools to look like toward the future would really, I think, behoove us.
Yeah,
So that's kind of like an interesting area that
cool.
I think, yeah, might be worth exploring.
Nice, I like it. I took something away from you though. I think for me the takeaway is we need to work on personalization quite a bit. I think that's going to be a key pillar for us as well moving forward. So I'm glad to be able to get that out of it as well. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think this really, covers a lot of the time that we have today. So first of all, thank you so much for coming and joining and being a part of this discussion. I think I learned quite a bit when it comes to financial platforms and how financial media platforms essentially also, and like how it is that you need to build trust, but also personalize the experience extremely in order to make sure that it's not a one size fits all, right? Um, and I think the way that you guys are going about doing that is quite awesome, in the sense of like you're really doing it with very specific financial tools and specific ways to generate actual value for the user rather than trying to boost it up through marketing or hype or this or that, right? And I think that's a very, very integral part of it. Education, like we said, I think plays a huge role in this. So it's good to see that you guys are also saying like you guys are also trying to tailor that based on where each user is in their educational journey. And I'm really excited to see what comes next. I mean, like you said, if you're looking towards seeing social features, community interactions in small ways, I'd be curious to see what you guys come forward with in terms of what you believe is the best way to do it, right? Some people do it, like you said, very directly, where you have a forum, etc. Might not be the best case in terms of the financial industry, but there's definitely ways I think to bring about that sort of loyalty, gamification, or interactive type experience in order to at least help retain users longer on the platform.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again for having me. The media industry is always changing quickly, but the passion for it remains the same. So I'm also really excited to be working on some of these forward thinking items. And, please reach out with feedback for anything that you see on CNBC. Always happy to hear from the user.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to touching base soon in the future to see how you guys evolve. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. It was really a pleasure. Looking forward to touching base soon. And thank you to everyone who came to attend. If there's any questions, feel free to put them in the chat now, or feel free to send them over later, and we're happy to answer them to you. You can find myself or Olympia on LinkedIn really easily. So don't feel afraid to reach out if you have any questions around this. Thanks again for your time, everyone, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.